Hi, Dr. Patel. Welcome to Deep Into Sleep podcast.
Hey there, Yishan. Lovely to see you.
Oh, so happy. I know we are connecting across the globe. You're in UK, right?
Indeed, yes. I'm in London, yeah.
Wow, amazing, amazing. I know I watched your TEDx talk and you are such a big advocate for health and you have a lot of great advice for people how to be healthier, how to change the mindset to be healthier. I'm sure our listeners today can really benefit a lot from you.
Oh, thank you. Sometimes we have to learn the hard way, don't we? And I think the sort of learning comes when you sometimes see how things go wrong, and then you know that there has to be a better way. So that's certainly been one of the big stories behind my shift in how I learned to practice medicine in a way that really does make a difference. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm curious, what do you want to share a little bit? What make you so interested in promoting health and including sleep health to the public?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I guess, it takes me back to when I was 18 years old and in medical school and arrived at those doors thinking, I want to help people. And it's a rigorous course and you learn in a very specific way about how to be a doctor. And then you get out into the big wide world and put everything that you've learned into practice and you're continually learning. But what I learned after a bit of passage of time was what I've described on my TEDx talk a little bit as well, that sense of the revolving door of healthcare where people are constantly coming back, people feel disempowered to look after themselves, almost turning to me, the doctor, the whole profession, to land health on our laps, and then we'd fix you and hand it back to you. And unfortunately, health doesn't work like that because it is yours. It belongs to you. And I think for me, when that sort of moment rose, that I didn't really want to be the drug pusher. I didn't want to keep pushing drugs at you because that's a lot of what we're taught about in medical school. It's the quickest fix that we can give somebody in this very time-pressured environment of healthcare that we work in. But it really wasn't a fix because that revolving door didn't stop. So I decided to step out of the revolving door, seek a better way, seek another way. And that's when I discovered really the sort of angle of lifestyle medicine, self-care, self-empowerment, and taking us right into the sort of current time. And what's really exciting is that we now have so much data and information and technology at our fingertips to really promote our health. So that journey for me has really been a sort of continually evolving one for sure. And of course, talking about sleep, which is clearly kind of your area of focus. And as a GP, so I've been a family doctor, a GP in the UK for a large part of my career. And sleep is one of those topics that comes up continuously. I'm pretty sure if I asked every single person who walked into my consulting room about sleep, they would have something to say. It's just one of those things we're talking about at bus stops and with our families and with our friends constantly, aren't we? But there didn't seem to be a fix for it, something to help with sleep, which is so fundamental, that I could provide in a very quick, concise way in a 10-minute consultation as a GP. And I found that now that I've kind of shifted very much into a lifestyle space, there's so much that inputs into sleep and the quality of sleep and the quantity of sleep that could be so focused and so specific to an individual that it has really sort of opened up a whole new way of how we look at sleep and why prioritizing it is so important as well.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. Sounds like you've been like seeing a lot of patients, doing a lot of clinical work and notice so many barriers possibly people have. I really like your philosophy that how to empower ourselves to take control over our own health, including sleep health.
Yeah. And I think if you don't do that, you give away a huge chunk of your life. In a way, if you think about being born with health, it's yours to hold, it's yours to keep. In my TEDx talk, I use the analogy of riding a bike and really sort of using health as your skill. It is one of your powers. It's one of your skills that you can continually optimize. You can't just have health and expect to keep it. You really have to kind of be maintaining it to reach this level of absolute optimism, which again, I believe at this time in our lives that we're living in this age when we've got so much access to information and technology, we are very, very able to optimize our health span and our lifespan, so long as we decide that that's what we want for ourselves, with all of the competing demands on our time.
Mm. Sleep, health is a skill. I really love that.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we talk about sleep, right? So I'm sure you see that a lot, as you mentioned. What have you noticed that really make people's sleep worse? What people are doing to harm or sabotage their own sleep health?
Mm. There's one thing that really, really stands out, Ishan, and I think that's that sense of sleep is not a priority for me. As I've mentioned, life is busy for everybody. There is always so much more to do than time seems to allow. And often people stay awake thinking about all the things that they need to do, want to do, could do, should have done. And they deprioritize sleep. So the biggest thing I've noticed is that sleep is often at the bottom of that list of priorities. It's the one thing that gets sacrificed so easily, sometimes intentionally. You stay awake to write that last report, to send off that last email. Sometimes you do it less intentionally. You're busy scrolling on your phone and the social media is kind of captivating you, and before you know it, things like Netflix, you say, I'll watch one more episode, one more episode, one more episode. Before you know it, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And so it can be so easy to sacrifice sleep. And I think the biggest thing, the biggest difference that I've been able to make to people is really to enable them to understand how critical sleep is. And that's from a very kind of a scientific perspective, but also that sort of the art of sleeping as well is something that we've lost as well. We know sleep is so critical, otherwise we wouldn't have had this sense of, being given the sort of genetics and the evolutionary mechanisms to sleep for 8 hours a day. Why on earth does that exist if it isn't absolutely critical to our survival? And we know this from data as well, don't we, that if you sleep less than 6 hours a night consecutively, your lifespan is shortened, and there's no doubt about that at all. And yet, even knowing that, why do people not prioritize sleep? Sometimes as though you're waiting for something to go wrong and you can't quite make the connection between the bad night's sleep and the effect it had on your productivity, the bad night's sleep and why you're irritable with your partner, the bad night's sleep and why you're not having any business success, the bad night's sleep and why you've an irritable gut and are feeling bloated. And once you start to make those connections, and this is beautifully done when you start tracking your sleep and using data and using technology, that you can really start to piece this together and join those dots and have those aha moments that tell you, right, this is it, and I'm no longer prepared to sacrifice my sleep in order to have a better relationship, to lose the bloat, to not have the foggy brain and the loss of clarity. I think that realization is so important, that it's not just sleep is at the bottom of my list. It's now something that is absolutely non-negotiable at the top.
Yeah, this level of self-awareness to
Yeah.
really start thinking about, wow, how my life are so closely related to my own sleep. And I
Mm.
think you mentioned sleep trackers, and there's a lot of sleep apps right now. Do you notice is that really help people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one thing that your listeners may have come across or may not have come across is this effect that exists, which is called the Hawthorne effect. I don't know if that's something you're familiar with, but the Hawthorne effect is the effect that being watched has on you. So, when someone is watching you or when you're being watched, your behavior changes, your actions change. So, this is very much an important nudge for us, which is why when you're wearing a tracker or you're tracking your sleep or you're collecting data about yourself, it's as if you're being watched. And automatically that Hawthorne effect kicks in, that your actions change simply by virtue of being watched. There was this study that was done in one of the universities in the UK, Nottingham University. And this was a campus where there were a lot of bicycle thefts going on, cycles being stolen. So the researchers identified 3 very key areas on campus where the bikes were being stolen, and they put these posters up on the wall in these 3 areas. And the poster was simply a pair of eyes that was watching outwardly, and it said on it, "Cycle thieves, we are watching you." And what happened, Ishan, in those 3 areas, the number of cycle thefts reduced by 62%,
Mm.
just because that sense was someone is watching me.
Oh,
So that's incredible. I think that really does describe very, very powerfully what effect being watched has. Because it changes the behavior, the thefts reduce. And similarly, how do you translate that into your health behavior? Well, if you're being watched, you're wearing a data watch or a data ring, then you get some information about yourself. You want to change that through your actions because numbers are really important to us. I think as human beings, there's the qualitative self, isn't there? That the stuff that really can't feel like it can't be measured. And then there's the quantitative side of ours, the things that we can measure and add numbers to. And increasingly, there's a lot more that we can measure about yourself. So once you start to measure data on your sleep, how long you're sleeping, how long it's taking you to fall asleep, how many times you're waking in the night, how much you're moving in the night, how much time you're spending in deep sleep or light sleep or dream sleep, then all of this information starts to become information about you. And so you can translate that into the actions that you can take to change those habits and those patterns.
I see. Yeah, yeah. Right. I have my own like sleep data
Ah,
tracker
yes,
too.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So it's definitely interesting. I notice, sometime I look at the phone app, it will mention, well, you go to bed too late, or, you're not like stay on bed for enough time, things like
Mhm.
that. It definitely sometimes send me kind of like alert, right?
Yeah.
Alarming signal that, oh, there's something I can optimize further for my.
Mm. Mm. I think I find though is the other thing is that it can also be something you ignore. You can get as many alerts on your phone as you want. You can get as many reminders that say you should sleep more, right? Just sleep. But it doesn't mean you're going to do it. You have to have a strong enough reason. So yes, I truly believe the numbers give you a nudge. Those numbers, those alerts, they're going to tell you, come on, it's time to do something. Don't wait till it gets critical, because otherwise that sound's going to be really, really loud. It will be in the form of a heart attack or cancer or Alzheimer's, and then you're going to have to pay some attention. So I'm sending you these soft numbers, these soft signals, these soft alarms now, so that you don't reach that really loud alarm. But you'll ignore it if you haven't got a strong enough driver. What is it? Why do you want to sleep better? It's a question for all listeners who are listening, right now. Why do you want to sleep better? And when you think, well, I just want to wake up and not feel tired. Why do you not want to feel tired? So that I'm just more energized in the morning. Why do you want to be more energized? So that I'm just not so irritable with my son. Why do you not want to be so irritable with your son at breakfast? Because I want to be a role model to him. And so you've got to really get really deep. You want to be this role model to your child. That's why you want to sleep more, not just so that you can get up and not feel tired. There's always so much more to it. So I think it's really important to really understand why you do the things that you do and why you don't do the things that you do. And unless you attach a level of importance to them, a level of absolutely, this is non-negotiable, you can have information but still not pay attention. But I think it's very important to have the information, because you also can't unknow what you know. Once you've got data that you're tracking and it's telling you about yourself, you can't really unknow it. You now know this about you. So there's even more, I think, reason to use the numbers to give you a nudge in the right direction, for sure.
Yeah, when you said ignore the alerts, I feel like, oh, partially that's just me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just ignore it and not care for it. And I really like what you mentioned, to dig deep to the
Mm.
core value, right? Core belief. It's
Mhm.
not just the surface level. Oh, I want this, I want that. Everyone else get it. I don't. I want it too. But deep down, what is special to you?
Mm.
Why you need to really have the buy-in to get the to prioritize sleep. I think that's possibly very individualized reason.
Yeah, yeah. So really think about what's important to me. Is my business success important to me? Why is my business success important to me? Yes, I want to make money. Why do you want money? Who's it to provide for? What does it enable you to do? And if you want absolute business success, you need to be productive at work. And if you need to be productive, that means you need to have at least 6 hours of sleep a night. The magic number really is 8, somewhere between 6 and 9, 7 or 9. That's the sort of number that all the research is pointing to. So, keep coming back to that. This is not about me just having business success or making money or having a huge business. This is so that I can provide for my family, make a difference in the world, and carry that value with you. And there is, again, some really interesting data that I came across recently about productivity and sleep as well. And then I mentioned business, but particularly with business owners, what's been found is that people who sleep less than the 6 hours for just two consecutive nights. If today you sleep 6 hours and tomorrow you sleep for 5.5 hours, what happens for the next 6 days is your productivity is much, much lower than had you slept for more than 6 hours just for those 2 days. So that's 6 days where your productivity drops just because you don't sleep well for 2 days. And it sounds crazy, right? Because we all have the odd night of disruption, but where it becomes that incessant pattern, this is the thinking about what is the impact of this on me. And the trouble is, I think, Ishan, as well, is that sometimes you don't feel the impact immediately. It's there sometime in the future, and so it's very easy to ignore it. But my message, really loud and clear, if I was an alarm right now pinging on your phone or on your watch, I would definitely be shouting at you that the future that you're creating is happening right now. You're not creating your future in the future. Whatever decisions you're making right now is creating your future. So please just don't ignore the importance of sleep as an absolutely critical tool for your survival to live long and live well. Who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah, I love that. Really need people listen to this message clearly, right? Right now, right here, every day, every moment we make the decision, impact our health, impact our future, impact what we value. And the research you share is very interesting. Just 2 nights of poor decision, poor sleep, leading to poor sleep. And it can have such a long-lasting, effects on your performance later. I remember one of my other guests, Dr. Michael Gardner, and he mentioned before another research similarly, but in a different way, that no matter how many hours you sleep, if if you are decide between, do I stay up a little bit later to prepare for something for tomorrow, or should I sleep more for tomorrow? So he mentioned just 15 minutes more sleep and go to bed at 15 minutes earlier than night can already boost your next day's performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, for people listening, is raise your own self-awareness. Try this out for yourself. This isn't just sort of generic advice. You need to really understand yourself. We're all different. We'll all have different chronotypes, for example, as well. So I test my clients and my patients for their chronotype, so what their natural genetic predisposition is to being the morning lark who's at their peak in the morning, or the night owl who's at their peak in the night. And where possible, if you can tap into your natural rhythms, you're going to be in a much better place of feeling effective, being healthier, being more productive, having much better memory, having better cognition, being able to make more sharp and focused decisions. So I think, again, back to testing and tracking. I do a lot of this with my clients. Take away the guesswork. Let's not live in a world where we have to guess. Should I do this? Should I try that? We don't have time for that. We're all busy people, right? So, which is why I come back to data and devices. Capture your data, do your tests, test your melatonin, test your cortisol, all these important hormones, biochemicals that are, really, really important to how we sleep. Get to know yourself. These are tests that I do constantly on my patients, and the information you get about yourself is incredible. And I guess, one message I definitely want to share is health can sometimes feel like a heavy weight on our shoulders, something that's hard and heavy and is hugely significant and has got long-lasting consequences. What I'm all about is making health fun as well. I think we have to lighten the load and enjoy what we know about ourselves, enjoy making health our skill, really having fun with it. And definitely sort of data and information gives us that element, because it makes it easy. It makes it fun. It makes it something you want to talk about and share, and you know, being together, having collaboration with other people, connecting in communities. It's a really good way of doing that with information about yourself as well. So let's definitely, you know, make sleep fun. Let's not make it something that we're worrying about constantly. Gosh, I could talk about lots and lots of things. Just saying that word worry, you know, how many people stay awake because of worry? It's such a common reason to be lying there. So whilst I've talked about sacrificing sleep on purpose, of course, there's many, many people who want to sleep and find it incredibly difficult to just get into bed, put your head on the pillow and fall asleep. And a lot of that is, it can be very environmental when we're looking at side of things with temperature and body temperature and light and sound, etc. But also a lot of it is mind related, and what's going on in your mind and what are you worrying about, and how much time are you allowing yourself to deprocess from the day, so that you give your brain permission to say, yeah, brain, thank you for the day. You've worked really hard for me today. It's now time for you to have some rest and regenerate and go to sleep.
Yeah, unfortunately, our brain does not have this light switch, right? Immediately, okay, switch on, switch off.
Mm,
But if we are able to shift how we think about sleep, how we think about our day, our health, and we can still manage the worry. If we give ourselves wind down period, I'm sure there's a lot we can do to really help our brain to
mm, mm.
fall asleep. But I agree, there are a lot of people, especially people with insomnia. Wow, like falling asleep could be really difficult, and the worry in their mind just won't stop.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting you're mentioning that. Very recently I've come across quite a run of my clients that I've been talking to about perfectionism and that need for us to feel perfect and have everything right and just so. And when I talk to them about some of the implications and the fallout from that, some of that comes down to back to sleep as well, as because of this constant strive to have really high standards associated with fear of failure, and then a lot of negative self-talk. The impact of that then is that sleep is affected quite significantly. And then, of course, we know there's a connection between sleep and emotions. And so then your emotional processing doesn't occur because you haven't slept. And back you are the next day, really high wired. Your emotions are not really under control by you. And that, again, negative self-talk, that fear of failure, the very high standard settings, these three very key perfectionisms that I've noticed that then impact on sleep. So again, just raising your own self-awareness about that is a useful way to start to help yourself process why you're not sleeping, and then unpick that as well. Yeah.
Right. When you talk about perfectionism, I actually noticed for some people who are already on the higher end of anxiety level, right?
Mm,
So when
mm,
they use any sleep trackers, when they look at sleep data, wow, that causes more problem. I think we call it orthosomnia. It's a new word nowadays, and
mm,
because they
mm.
have such a high performance anxiety, they tend to use the data to drive their sleep as a performance, which cause more problem for a certain group people. I don't know whether you notice any of those.
Yes, for sure. And that's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think we, you know, we have to be very mindful of our digital technology and our access to information. And we have to make this a tool that is for us, not against us. And it's really, really important. And maybe I come back to the why question is, why is this information about your sleep helpful to you? Is it helpful or unhelpful? And in the majority of people, and I would probably argue that even with people who have anxiety, health anxiety, stresses, perfectionism traits, there is a pre-conversation that I will have with all of my patients and my clients, so that we actually reduce some of that and utilize it as helpful information. And that needs to be done in a very comfortable and closed environment, which again is why I would say that although these trackers and data are widely available for everyone as a consumer to buy off the shelf, I'm very much not in the land of off the shelf care. I talk a lot about very much more strategic self-care, and to have someone who has got that level of professionalism, credibility, whether it's a doctor like myself, many other sleep experts, sleep coaches, to really make sure that you've got, hand in hand. Yes, you're taking control of your own health, but to do that as a journey alongside someone who's able to provide you the right guidance, so that, exactly as you say, this rising of anxiety that sometimes is a potential from information overload, you negate that very easily. So that, it's a very relevant point to make. Yeah, thank you for raising that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for, helping us understand, helping all the and listeners understand they have a control. They can make a lot of good choices for their
Mm,
health, for
mm.
their sleep. I think this is a very strong message and very important for everyone who are listening to really remember, hopefully.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even with things like, as you say, anxiety and depression, I come back to how can you add a little bit of lightness to this? How can you add some fun to sleep information, and how you utilize that to help your sleep? And again, whether it's you're staying awake because of anxiety, or staying awake because of social sacrifices or peer pressures, or whatever those reasons are, if you can get to the nub of the why and use information to help you with that, then sleep is something that it's hardwired into you. It is the most natural thing that we all do. So we've just got to get back into our very natural rhythms and our circadian rhythms to enable that again, haven't we?
Yeah, like you said, make sleep fun, right?
Yeah.
Make health lifestyle adjustment fun. And I think when you are having fun, you are enjoying the process, then
Mm,
also it's light-weighted and you are in this flow, then you will feel what the signals your brain and body tries to send you.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So fun and factual, I think, is the thing to remember. Make health fun, make sleep fun, but remember to keep it factual. Don't get pulled away by, there's so many things on the internet and social media. Do this, try this. I did this, he did that, she did that. And before you know it, you're overwhelmed with all the things that you could do. And you end up either spending your time doing things that don't help you. And so you get even more disheartened and anxious and worried, or you don't even try anything because it's just too much. So I think, again, make sure that whatever approach you have is fun and factual, both.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really love that. It's I like what you said. Sleep and health are both, I think, a skill, and
Mm,
make it fun and factual. I'm sure can really help us find the right way. And in the process, I think we can all start somewhere that works
mm,
best for us. If
mm.
we reach our limit, we can always find professional resource around
Yeah.
us, really guide us to make it better.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. And so it is sometimes hard to do that completely on your own as well. So I think you're right in terms of that professional guidance, as I said, from sleep experts like myself. It's very handy to do that until you get to know your own patterns and your own self. It's reminding me of a client I had recently who has having terrible difficulty sleeping, and noticed all the consequences the next day with emotional irritability and lack of clarity. And when I analyzed her sleep with her, what we discovered was that the amount of time she spent in light sleep was very, very short. And so we were able to focus on, well, how do you get into that level of light sleep more? And one thing we did together was look at using alpha wave music. So alpha wave music, it's got a frequency of, I think, somewhere between 8 and 13 hertz. It's a music that you can on music channel, and she started listening to some of this music as she was falling asleep, and it had a huge difference to her level of sleep. She had much more light sleep, and we need deep sleep, we need light sleep, we need dream sleep. They've all got different functions, and the difference it made to her was incredible. The restlessness in the night was much less. She was getting some headaches as well, and so that heaviness in the morning had lightened. She described her energy levels as being higher. Her emotional stability was much greater. And that was simply because we tailored what she did to her data. And before that, she was trying all sorts of things, wearing this sleep mask and having a hot bath before she went to bed, and all these things that, of course, are very useful if that's very specific for you. But because we were able to be very specific by looking at her data, she would never have known that that was the issue. The difficulty was the movement from being awake to light sleep to deep sleep that her body was struggling with. And we enabled that to happen because your brain waves mimic the sounds that you're hearing. So she was hearing the alpha wave music. Her brain waves moved from the beta waves of being awake to the alpha waves of light rest. And then she was much more quickly able to move into those deeper sleep waves as well. So fascinating. And even more fascinating, actually, what she also did was she started to play the music on the speakers around her house in the night. So it wasn't just her listening to it. As her daughter started sleeping better and her husband started sleeping better. So before you knew it, the whole household was positively affected because we'd used data and information to make a difference rather than guesswork. So that was great. Really, really
Wow.
grateful. Yeah.
That's wonderful. That's a great example that we have to really respect science and data, right? Do it, like you said, factual. But sounds also fun. The whole family is listening to music.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It was great. Yeah, wonderful.
Oh, that's awesome. So Dr. Patel, thank you so much for sharing all this with us. And if our listeners want to find out more of your work, where can they find you?
Oh yeah, for sure. So you can get in touch on my website, which is dralkapatel.com. And I'm also on all the socials, Alka Patel UK as well. And I have access to some great apps as well, which I'll put some links. I'll send you some links as well, Yishan. You can share them with your leaders, which give you 30-day free access to an app that I use with my clients. So you'll got that. You'll have access to your data, have access to sleep courses on there as well, and sleep coaching as well as specific recommendations on there. So I'd highly recommend that. So I'll send the link to you. You're welcome to share that with your listeners as well.
Awesome. Yes, I think there's shortage of, sleep providers all
Yes.
over the place. So anything evidence-based, legit, right? I'm happy to
100%.
help more people to know those resources. And I will also put all your website, all your social media handles, and whatever information you give me to the show note at deepintosleep.co. So whoever listening should be able to find all this information. Thank you again.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're very welcome. It's easier than you think to sleep well is the last thing I want to leave everyone with. So let's make it fun. Let's make it factual, and you will sleep.
Great, very hopeful.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you, Yishan. Lovely talking.
Yeah, thank you.